Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, June 23rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Ball State game in 74 days, the game against Michigan in 158 days. We're sponsored today by Jeff Ruby's of Columbus, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus. Named one of the top 50 steakhouses in America by Food Network. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus or scan that convenient QR code on the screen to check out the menu and make a reservation today. All right, on today's show, I'm joined by Juck Miletti, the recruiting insider at BuckeyeInsiders.com. Very busy weekend of visits at Ohio State. They had some official visits. They had an unofficial visitor that we got to talk about. We also got to talk about someone who made an official visit to Michigan, who Ohio State is keeping a close eye on. Juck, let's start with Jir Brown, 2027 five-star wide receiver out of Big Walnut, suburban Columbus High School. That's where he's going to school now. And this was one of those situations where you sort of anticipated, came into the weekend, no problem, solidly in the class. I'm assuming no news is good news on that front.
Absolutely. And they originally scheduled Jir Brown and Brady Edmonds, who we'll talk about on this weekend right here, as they were the big name, locked-in guys from early, and they were going to come here on the final official visit weekend, which was originally supposed to be a pretty big one with a lot of defensive tackle prospects, etc. You end up coming into this due to guys committing elsewhere, or Ohio State knocking guys off the board with the fewest, just three uncommitted official visitors on the weekend, as they went now the 4 weekends, 4, 4, 4, and 3. So much smaller and more precise than the last couple of years. But Jir obviously totally locked in, shut down his recruitment a while ago, and really had a great weekend. Had some really sweet pictures coming out of that one. I know everybody's getting really excited about him, as he just broke some Ohio records in the 100 and the 200 meter on the track. The guy's just a burner, man.
Yeah, definitely a player who feels like he committed early enough that everyone has sort of factored him into the class and is not quite as excited as they might be if he had just committed recently. So yeah,
exactly.
Definitely a big name at the top of the 2027 class. Now, another big name that would be a big addition in the middle of the defensive line is Karlos May. Ohio State has a couple really, really good edge prospects, could be adding another one, but they really don't have anyone in the middle of that defensive line. Karlos May, 330-pound, four-star defensive tackle out of Birmingham. He would be a big addition in several ways to this class. How was his visit? Where do things stand for him coming out of it?
Man, it's really interesting, Tom. This weekend, originally, they had scheduled defensive tackles Malik Lee, Tyler Alexander, Jamar Thompson, all in addition to Karlos May. And Ohio State kind of passed on all of those guys and turned their focus just on Karlos May and Kasai Curry. We saw Kasai Curry commit to Texas, and now it's just Karlos. And Karlos, from the state of Alabama, has been really tight with Auburn this entire process, though he really likes Ohio State, was up for the Student Appreciation Day. We saw him that day. And now he comes back for his official, but he hit Georgia first. And Georgia, I think, kind of opened his eyes, and maybe he's not going to go to Auburn. Georgia came out, he said, the leader out of that official visit. Now he comes to Ohio State to throw another wrench in the plan. And I think that the Buckeyes came out of this one almost on level playing field with these two, and it went really, really well. And now that we see, look, you might be the only defensive tackle in this class when it's all said and done. That's really appealing to a guy like Big Los, man. He fancies himself one of the best in the country, and he is. He's a stud.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's your interior of the defensive line. Obviously, a spot that they need to add someone. He would be a very, very big addition if they can pull it off. But sounds like that one may drag on a little longer before there's a decision. One where the decision is coming up very soon is wide receiver Blake Wong. He came in from the West Coast. And this is one where Ohio State seemed like they were in one kind of a position not that long ago, and now things may have shifted a little bit.
You know, Blake Wong offered from camp last year. He was an absolute nobody, and then he kind of explodes in his senior year. But his identity, you know, he would do videos, and this is star wide receiver from Norco High School, Blake Wong, and you know, they would say he's got a big offer, and he was an Ohio State offered wide receiver. It was part of who he was. And it looked like for the longest time, he was a lock for this class. And then BYU entered the picture, and Utah and Oregon and UCLA, and he had taken officials to all of those places. and it looked like kind of a BYU and Oregon at the top with Ohio State upon him coming into town. And coming out of it, obviously he had a great time, and he's always loved Ohio State. Ultimately, I think this one's going to come down to the modern recruiting era. What's he going to prioritize here between BYU and Oregon, who've come at him pretty hard, and Ohio State? And that decision coming up real quick here. So not a whole lot of time that we're going to need to wait by the end of the week here. And we'll probably talk a little more about this later on this week about Blake Wong, who I think would just be a sensational addition to this class with Jir Brown. I think he comes in a little more polished as a wide receiver than Jir, and every bit as talented. Really, it would almost, you would say, be a lazy comp, but he is so much like Brock Boyd to me in every way. Just a guy who can kind of do it all, worksman, a guy that just wins and puts up huge stats.
So that's a couple guys who are uncommitted, who we're sort of wondering, okay, where are things standing as they come out of the weekend? Now we got to go to a guy who is committed, but I think everyone's sort of wondering where things stand with him coming out of the weekend, and that's quarterback Brady Edmonds. He has been committed to Ohio State's class of 2027 for about a year and a half, and I think everyone was anticipating, okay, this is the weekend where everyone will get some clarity about where things stand for the future. And it sounds like this may be one of these things where the Magic 8 Ball says a little cloudy, ask again later.
It's interesting. We know that Brady said publicly in a very publicized national article that he had not been feeling the love from Ohio State before this official visit. And I think that I and many other people were thinking, all right, the ball's in Ohio State's court. He's going to come in. They're going to, lay it on and let him know that, look, we're still dedicated to you. And they did. They did all that stuff with Brady. And Brady comes out of this almost sounding as though he is making a decision between Ohio State and UCLA, like he's not really a committed prospect, as if he's weighing the options between these two. It's not like I'm shutting my recruitment down right now. Things went great. It's like I'm going to decide in a couple weeks or, pretty soon is what he told me. But, as well as things went, I was really hoping and kind of expecting that this would be all smoothed over and he would be gung-ho coming out of this, and that's not what happened. Ultimately, this one's kind of starting to feel like a coin flip between UCLA and Ohio State for Brady.
Another one where it may be a little bit of a coin flip is Monsa Torbert. He visited Michigan this weekend, not Ohio State. He's an in-state prospect out of Princeton down in Cincinnati. Cornerback. Ohio State has added a couple of cornerbacks recently to the 27 class. Would love to add him as well. But, he was not at Ohio State. He was at Michigan, and that obviously complicates the picture there. So where do things stand with him at the moment?
Yeah, so the Buckeyes add Jaden Carey out of St. Thomas Aquinas and then Deontay Malone out of Massillon, and wanted to add in-state Monsa Torbert, a top 100 overall prospect, with him. And Monsanto was in at Ohio State for his official with Deontay Malone. The Buckeyes didn't want him to get up to Michigan for that official. Kerry Combs pushing hard. He's the lead recruiter here, the Cincinnati ties, and they get him up to Michigan. Now, Ohio State, as we know, this cycle at cornerback, not spending much money, being a little tight. Michigan, the opposite of that, as is Louisville and Vince Marrow, who we know raids Ohio. Louisville's already got 5 Ohio commits in the class. Monsa Torbert would be their number 1 ranked committed prospect if they were to poll him. And it looks like right now he's got pretty substantial offers coming from both of those programs, not Ohio State. And the Buckeyes, they're climbing uphill here now in this one with Monsa Torbert from everything I've garnered.
And if you're wondering, Vince Marrow, if you're having trouble placing that name, he's at Louisville now. He had been at Kentucky for a long time assistant there, great Ohio ties, has for years and years when Kentucky came into Ohio and brought in guys like Lynn Bowden or, some of the guys that you can think of over the years, a lot of that was Vince Marrow.
Here's a little nugget for everybody, Tom. Over the past 3 years, not a Big Ten school, Kentucky has had more Ohio high school players than any other program in the country.
Yeah, it's and a lot of that is Vince Marrow because it is comfort and relationships, as we always say in the recruiting business, and Vince Marrow has a lot of relationships in the state of Ohio. So there you go. You may be watching Lincoln Keenholz at Louisville, picking up some more Ohio teammates over the next few years. One guy we need to talk about who is sort of the exception to this rule. Everyone we've talked about so far on this show has been a 2027 recruit. We got to talk about a 2029 recruit. That's Austin Miller, who is a really, really top wide receiver in that 2029 class. He was also in this weekend. Of course, this would be an unofficial visit for him. You can only go on an official starting the summer or the spring before your senior year. So this was an unofficial visit for him. But this is one where it feels like that this may have moved the needle a little bit for him.
This is a power of the Blocko recruitment. Austin Miller is going to debut when those rankings come out, as he's so far ahead. There aren't even any. As the number one wide receiver in the country, there's no doubt about that. 6'5", 200 pounds, already jacked. And this kid is the stats he put up as a true freshman in varsity football are ridiculous, not just on offense, but on defense as well. And in April, he was talking to Ohio State recruiting guys and ready to get things rolling for his recruitment. Basically, like, guys, I'm ready. Let's get talking. Ohio State's at the top of the board for me. And sure enough, the Buckeyes wanted to schedule him in, but they wanted to do it and have a little bang. So they brought him in on this official visit weekend. And I talked to him coming out of the thing, and he was just amazed that they treated him specifically, he mentioned with Brady Edmonds and Jir Brown, like he was right there with him. And they really wowed him. They knocked his socks off. And, of course, he wanted, it seemed to me from the very beginning, to go to Ohio State anyway. So things looking really, really swell coming out of this one for Austin Miller. And I know everybody will roll their eyes. Who cares about a 2029 kid? And I get it. But it is of note that this is the same time in Chris Henry Jr.'s career when he committed to Ohio State at the same point. In addition to that, the same time Elijah Newman-Hall committed, and we're now a year later, and Elijah Newman-Hall is still not visited a single other program. And I think sometimes there's just a different type of kid out there that doesn't want to go through all the other jazz that we're seeing so many of these other top prospects get involved in. They know what they want. Ohio State seems to be a good fit for kids like that.
Yeah, and he is someone else he's from Bellflower, California. Reminds me a little bit of Wyatt Davis, just in that sort of personality where it's a little bit no nonsense, and a big time player, not kind of playing the game, just kind of you find where you want to go, and that's it. And it's kind of no drama, no nonsense, no nothing. So there you go. Certainly one that we will be keeping a close eye on in the coming days and weeks. And as Juck sort of mentioned there are a bunch of guys with 2027 decisions coming up in the next days to week or so. We're going to do a show a little later on this week with some final calls on some of those. Are they in? Are they out? We'll do a morning show with that a little later on this week. We'll have plenty more coming up in the next few days. You can find us at youtube.com/@BuckeyeInsiders. You can find the Buckeye Weekly podcast, the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast, the Time and Change Will Surely show that Juck and Tony do that one. That's a really cool new format where they look at the past, present, and future of some topic in Ohio State football. I'm enjoying that one. You've probably heard one or two of those as bonus shows in the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast, but go ahead and subscribe to that one as well. I think you're going to enjoy that one. We have much more coming very soon at BuckeyeInsiders.com. If you want to be on the inside, know exactly what's coming, and then when that's going to happen, you can go to BuckeyeInsiders.com right now and sign up. Just put your email address in there, and we'll start sending you updates on where things stand. Got a new edition coming to the site very soon, and when we're going to be launching, all that stuff coming up very, very soon. Not as soon as we'd like, as you can tell, because we're not live yet, but coming very soon. We'll have all that for you at BuckeyeInsiders.com. And thanks again to our friends at Jeff Ruby's of Columbus, proudly offering nationally acclaimed USDA prime steaks, seafood and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.